There's a lot of things I've learned about this Marvin Elevate window, and I want to share them with you. I want to show you how to replace the lock base, the tie bar, basically take this entire window apart. So let's get started. If your house is completely finished and you're having operational issues with this window, I don't know how many times I've gone to a job site and the only thing you need to do is just remove these shipping blocks. For those of you who don't know what a sash is the glass and the frame it's attached to, and I want to show you how to remove it for any painting or staining. We're going to start by unlocking the window and using a temporary handle to crank the window open. And then with a screwdriver or some sort of flat bar, you can push down like that to detach that. And if you ever crank the window and this always comes out, two things to check. One is to make sure if you can bend that back up if it's too low. And two, I don't know how many times a painter will take this window out and they lose this little insert. That needs to be on there because that snaps onto that. So if this is missing, get a replacement, and then we'll pop that arm off like that, and then we'll crank it out of the way. With a flat screwdriver or a flat bar, we'll go ahead and pop this off. It just snaps off. With a partner, have someone hold on to the sash while you go ahead and pop the top one off. Now we'll slide the window out by going past this point here and then take it towards the exterior. To reinstall the sash, simply just reverse the order. Start by attaching it at the top first. See that little hook? That goes behind that little hook there. Simply take the arm, snap it back on. Next, we'll go ahead and crank the crank out and reattach the arms. We'll go ahead and reattach the arm to that little insert there. Just like that. I've adjusted this window to be at a square. Now this install in this window is relatively square, so it doesn't look that bad. But if you look here, hopefully you can see it, that it's a little tight here, and as you go this way, this gap gets bigger. And down here, if you see here, this gap is smaller, and it gets bigger as it goes this way. With this wrench that your window came with, or should have come with, at least one of these somewhere, you can use this to adjust the sash this way or this way by turning something at the top and bottom, and let me show you how to do that. To give you a visual what's going on here, you don't have to do this, but I'm just doing this for visual. See this part here? This is on a cam, so when you move this wrench like this, you can move the sash this way or this way by turning this cam. So by turning this way, see how that moves that way? And it moves that way. So we're going to go ahead and sit this in the neutral position, which is this position like that. That is the neutral. That's how it should have come from the factory. Okay, we're going to move this one to the neutral position, and then we'll check the reveal around the window. As you can see now, this weather stripping is making contact all the way along here. We got a good reveal along the side. And as you can see here, it's a little wider, so it's more consistent now. So now this looks like the window is adjusted to the opening. Now, if you have one of these that are pretty difficult to lock and you go to lock it, it's really, really stiff, a couple things you can do. One, you can get some Tri-Flow, and I'm not a paid sponsor, and you can spray all this hardware. This little black piece actually spins, so when you go to lock it, this actually rolls up into here. So what you can do is spray a little on this. That'll help that spin. Also, you can spray some here, and that'll help with the locking. Or simply you can go from the outside with this hardware cover on and you can do the same thing. And that'll help this mechanism work a lot smoother. Another thing you can do is also shim these out a little bit by using some little washers to put behind there. Now, if your window has been closed but not locked, I would suggest leaving it locked for a few weeks so it can acclimate to the frames. You should only do this if you absolutely have to, because when you put these in, the sash isn't going to go and compress the weather stripping as tight as it would from the factory. So this is something you can do. Let me show you how. So you can see there's a little groove here for the screw to clear. Okay, we got the screws in there. We'll put the little washers here. And you can do this on all of the keepers, not just the one. The bottom screw first. And as you can see, there's now a little gap here that'll help the window lock easier. Now if you get one of these where this is bent too far that way or this way, simply take your keeper alignment tool and you can bend it this way or bend it that way. Or if you need to, you can bend the whole thing this way or that way to get that to line up with that. So don't be afraid to do that. As you can see, we don't have any shims installed in this window right now. So I want to show you how to remove these hardware covers so you can install your shims and hide a screw or a nail, or it'll also give you access to things like the lock base and the roto gear. Go ahead and open the window. Then we'll use my number 1 and number 2 tool. It is a sharpened, thickened putty knife. If the window has already been painted or stained, you will have to take a utility knife to score along these lines, because these are nailed on. So we'll start with the bottom first. Sometimes if you take the hardware cover and just wiggle it a little bit, it'll come loose. We can wiggle. Then we can pop this in there like that. Or if you're afraid, you could also take this behind it to help it up, just like that. Be mindful not to damage your wood here by cranking it too hard. And once you get this started, you can take this bar, put it in there like that. And the nails are still in it. Sometimes the nails will stick in there. If they do, just take some nail pullers and pull them out. I like to try to leave them in because when I put these covers back on, I try to line up the holes so I don't have to put new holes here. And this is where the screen sits in, so you will not see these nail holes when you put your screen in. As you can see, we already got a little gap here. If you can't get this in here, sometimes you can come to the back side. See this gap here? Sometimes you can take this and pull it down a little bit if you need to get it started. And as you can see here, that gives us a bigger gap, and that way we don't take any more chances of damaging any wood. So we'll go down. It's always best to go down on a stop because it's easier to replace this part than it is this part. Oh, we got some nails in there. Let me show you how to take those out. Go ahead and take some pullers. Okay. And get that started. As you can see here on this roto gear, they leave a couple screws out. What you can do, especially if you're in an impact zone or a high wind zone, you can pre-drill here and put a long screw in here to secure the frame. Okay, that really secured this bottom part of the window and this roto gear really tight. So now I'm going to pre-drill to put my shims in here. Right in this spot here. We're going to go about 6 inches up or so from the bottom corner up here. We're going to countersink it. And then we can put our shims in here. And we got to make sure that we don't over shim and we don't over tight. Just like that, and we secure our shims. And then we can cut these off later. We'll do all the way around the window. And we want to put our screws in this area here. Be sure not to use a screw with a head that's too big that's going to get in the way of this channel, because if it does, this stop will not sit flush if that screw head is in the way. So make sure it's countersunk, so when you put the stop back on, it looks nice and flush. We got our shims in, our screws are secured. We want to make sure that we didn't over tighten those. So we'll also make sure everything is square, level, plumb, and then you could also check for true. True is where the window is twisted like this. This is a way to check for true, is if you cross string it, and then you come over here, the two strings should be touching. See right here, the string is touching, and if you want to find out maybe if it's one way or the other, we can just take the string off, move it to the back side here, and if the string is still touching, you know it's true. If your window or door is twisted, you'll see a gap like this in between the string. Also, be sure to take a regular square. Check every corner, make sure it's like every corner is good, because a square never lies, unless it's bent. So that looks perfect. After you checked with the square and the level, go ahead and take your measurement from here to here. This measurement should be the same. This measurement should be the same. This measurement should be the same. Same thing here, here, and here. Then you could also check the diagonal measurements from this way. This should be the same measurement. That should be the same measurement. If you're off about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch, you should be okay. So we'll do the same thing on the outside because you can have a frame that's bowed in or bowed out. So we want to make sure the exterior is the same. I'd like to show you how to replace this lock base and this tie bar. Sometimes if you have operational issues with this, sometimes this will slip off of this, but I'll show you how all that connects. So you can see there's 2 screws here. And you can take it out just like that. As you can see here, there's a little hook, so if we ever want to hook this back up, we can just go like this. But if you have one of these where you found that it slipped off or this is bent out this way, we can simply just remove these screws. And you can take this bar and bend it back like that so it really pushes tight against this lock base. But let's go ahead and show you how to replace this tie bar. Now, as you can see, we got a brand new tie bar here. This is the old one. You do have to specify the length for the window, but from the factory, you can see how this moves. On this one, it doesn't move. That's because this is preset from the factory, so you can line it up with the 2 holes, and then you can put everything back together. And once you lock and unlock it, it breaks these little tabs right here. So that allows that to go freely. I have found in the field that sometimes this little piece here could come loose, cause operational issues with this window. So if you got this on here and you're like, hey, this lock is binding up or something, sometimes you'll see that this piece, I don't know, just comes out of its spot. If that happens, you can take that off and pop that off. So now this little thing here is out of the way and it'll never cause any future operational issues again. You shouldn't have to do that, but don't be afraid to do it. So we'll go ahead and line these back up. Before I tighten these screws down, I'm going to go ahead and put this lock base back on. This is what we call the sash weather stripping. This pulls out relatively easy. If you can't pull it out with your fingers, you can use a putty knife to help assist this out. These holes, if you have an older one, are not going to be there. There is a connecting barb with these little arrows, and there's a kerf that it goes into, and it's just a friction fit that pushes in like that. So whenever you have to replace it, just get the new piece. These holes only belong at the top on both sides, not the top and bottom of the sash. Make sure it's pushed in completely. This is the frame weather stripping. In order to replace it, same thing, just take a putty knife, help assist it out. And it's the same way, we pull it out. This is what it looks like. As you can see, there's a 45-degree angle here. If you're replacing this, I would put a little drop of silicone in there and smush that in there to make a nice tight seal. Even though it looks like it's nice and tight there, you may want to put some silicone in there. And then simply push it in. You can see here the nails are still sticking out, so I'm going to go ahead and try to line those holes up. Of course, once you paint and install your screen, these things will never come out again. And the ones we can't, we can just nail by hand. For the ones that the nails pulled through, you can either take your nail gun and shoot new nails, or you can go ahead and do it by hand. With every window, it's going to come with a hardware bag. This particular window is a left-hand window, meaning the hinges are on the left from the outside looking in. So with the left-hand window, you're going to receive a hardware bag that is white. If it were a right-hand window, you would receive a bag that is red. And that is important because if you mix-matched them, you'll see here in a second why it's important you put the proper hardware on the proper window. And just snap that on. just like that. If it doesn't go, sometimes just take your palm and palm it on there. Now what I don't want you to do is go ahead and just put it on there like that and tighten this screw, because the window is in the open position, and when you go to close it, it may not line up properly. So we're going to go ahead and close the window all the way. See how it doesn't line up? If that doesn't line up, go ahead and simply just remove it, put it to where it lines up. It may not be 100% perfect. Just go, you don't have to torque it down. And then we'll go ahead and we'll tighten this screw. Now this is also important to note for those of you who are putting a seat on this window. If you put a seat that's too high, obviously you're not going to be able to crank your window. So do be mindful if you do put a seat to put it below where this crank goes. And see how that fits? If you were to put a right-hand crank on this window, this twist would be the opposite and it wouldn't look like that. So if you got one of these that doesn't look right, find another one in the house. You're probably going to find one that's the opposite of that, but that's how that looks. Now let's go ahead and install this lock and escutcheon. So when we put this on, we just don't shove it in there. As you can see, there's a thin side and a thick side. So we want to make sure that the thin side is to the drywall and the thick side is to the window. We do not want to accidentally put it on backwards. So we're going to go ahead and get these, and they're going to clip on to these things here. There's one there, and there's one here. Now, if you look in here and you have one of these that are not fitting on there, there could be a very small chance that this is not put on properly from the factory, or this wood is not notched properly. It should look relatively equal distance from here to there. So we're going to go ahead and I like to either start at the top or bottom. If the top's already hooked, we'll go ahead, pop it on there just like that. And then this just slides in there, and it's a friction fit. Now, if you got one of these that are super, super loose, you can put a drop of silicone in there to help glue it in there. But just go in there like that, push it in there like that. There you go. That is locked. That is unlocked. See this excessive gap here? This is not a defect in the window. This is because when you come down here, the window is cranked and it's pulling it tight at the bottom. That's why it looks tight there, and there's a gap here. And this is how you fix it. Lock your window. Now, it's pulled in tight at the top. That's the way this window is designed. I used to be an insulation installer for over 5 years back in the day. And one thing I really want to mention about using foam, even when you use no expanding, low expanding, or any kind of foam, all foam expands to a certain point. So be mindful when you fill up cavities like this with foam. You're supposed to take the straw to the exterior, do a single pass, let it expand for 6 hours, and then come back and do another pass, wait 6 hours, etc. If you fill up this cavity all at one time with foam, what happens is the foam creates a shell that it cannot escape out of itself, and it'll tend to bow your frame. I've seen it happen several times, so be very mindful of that. And of course, your local codes may say otherwise. If I can stick my fingers in it, I'm putting fiberglass in it. But if you absolutely have to use foam, you may want to consider backer rod or being very conservative with any kind of foam that you use. Well, there you have it. That's just about everything I can possibly think of to show you on this Marvin Elevate window. And if you found this video informative, please consider hitting the subscribe button below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.